Are you looking for the best Z490 motherboards? In this video we will look at some of the best Z490 motherboards. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Number 1. MSI MEG Z490 GODLIKE Gaming Motherboard. If you are planning a build that is going to need some serious cooling, the GODLIKE has you covered. Literally. It goes about this by covering large sections of the PCB with patented Frozr heatsinks, in many places covering the full width of the board, and we have to admit it looks quite cool. I am a tech geek when it comes to PCBs and will admit to liking how components look when laid out on the board, but these big brushed metallic sheets not only serve their purpose but manage to give the GODLIKE a very contemporary look as well. This board has a limit of 128 GB of RAM, which, let's face it, is still massive overkill for 99.9% of users. 5000 MHz clock speeds add to the general speediness of what you get here. Where this really stands out is when it comes to storage options. For starters, you get a relatively standard pair of M.2 slots offering 32 GB bandwidth per second. The bonus though comes on the included smart fan that is used to cool the heatsinks, which come with an extra 2 slots, meaning you could, as long as you have the storage, use 4 different M.2 drives. Very cool. Wi-Fi 6 is built in alongside 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, which will future-proof you for a good while yet. To top it off, there are 2.5 gigabits per second LAN and 10 gigabits per second Super LAN ports, as well as ports to plug in the included Wi-Fi antenna. The RGB lighting isn't over the top, and the MSI Dragon is nicely and tastefully illuminated along with some other accents around the place. GODLIKE? Certainly the top of our best Z490 motherboards list. Number 2. GIGABYTE Z490 AORUS Xtreme. Personally speaking, I've long been a fan of GIGABYTE motherboards. Most of my builds over the years have flitted between them and MSI, and yet again GIGABYTE is delivering the goods in this latest round of technology. The AORUS Xtreme is another mighty fine looking board with large heatsinks, although not as dominant as on the MSI GODLIKE. The cooling fins and backplate here are all coated in nanocarbon to improve the movement of heat even more, and this is necessary as this board is packing a lot of power. In fact, its 16 power stages can each put out 90 amps, meaning this is a board to go to if you are planning on running lots of beefy components and have a decent PSU to supply the juice in the first place. 3 PCIe slots, all fitted to the latest PCIe 4.0 standard, something you will struggle to take advantage of with Intel right now, but great for looking forward. The board also carries 3 M.2 slots, enabled a good supply line to your storage, and unlike the GODLIKE, the 4 DIMM slots here can take up to 256 GB of RAM, which if you feel you are most probably wasting money, as you really would never need that unless in extreme situations. Good rear connectivity finishes it off, along with Wi-Fi 6.0 support. For USB 3.0 and 2 Thunderbolt ports will keep you happy with what you need to plug in. Yet again, GIGABYTE continue to make great mobos that are worth every cent. Number 3. MSI MEG Z490 ACE Gaming Motherboard. Okay, so not everybody can justify spending multiple hundreds of dollars on a motherboard. While it is definitely not a part you should cheap out, it is often one of the first areas to get cut when you are getting parts of a new build together. That doesn't mean, certainly with the new Z490 standard, that if you spend less money you are going to get a box full of rubbish. Not at all. This offering from MSI is obviously a couple of steps down from the GODLIKE, but also, it is pretty much half the price. Design-wise, it is actually quite similar to the GODLIKE, with dominating heatsinks cooled by MSI's Frozr technology, so where have the cuts come in to get the price lower? Well, 3 M.2 slots here rather than the 4 on the GODLIKE, we are sure you will agree that is more than enough for most people. You can still fit a max of 128 GB of RAM in, but it does operate at 200 MHz slower at 4800, but are you really going to notice the difference in the majority of real-world scenarios? Put away your benchmarks for a minute and think of your bank balance. 3 PCIe slots, 5 USB 3.2 ports, and a couple of USB 2.0, but no Thunderbolt. Again, it's nice to have, but half the price. If you are the kind of person that absolutely must have the top specs of everything, you will turn your nose up at this, and that's a real shame, as it offers not much less in the performance department and much less in the price department. It's probably the most sensible buy of the best Z490 motherboards on show here. Number 4. MSI MPG Z490 Gaming Carbon Wi-Fi Gaming Motherboard. The Gaming Carbon from MSI is a popular model and the Z390 did well for them in terms of sales, and there is no reason to believe this latest version will not be as popular. In truth, it is pretty similar to the Z390, apart from obvious things like the socket. The price has gone up $60 though, which seems a little unnecessary all things considered, but you are still getting a very decent motherboard for your money here. Two M.2 slots are available and placed identically to the last iteration of the board, but one other noticeable difference is the repositioning of the RGB on the lower half of the PCB. Other than that, it is a basic update to a popular existing board, with the only real changes being to bring it in line with the Z490 spec. A case of why fix what isn't broken, but it would have been nice to see just a few more nods towards a bigger redesign. Number 5. ASUS ROG Maximus 12 Apex Wi-Fi 6 Z490. Now we reach our fifth and final board of this roundup, and we could have looked at many more, but there seems little point in bombarding you with 30 similar boards. We will doubtless revisit this list as time goes by, but for now, we are going to finish with the Maximum 12 Apex from ASUS ROG. We wanted to include this option as it is one that the serious overclockers will be most interested in. Similar in design to the Xtreme and the same range, this Apex version comes with everything overclockers might ever need in its overclocking toolkit, which has a condensation sensor built in that will throttle back the CPU the second it to sense moisture building up. A large VRM heatsink dominates the look of the board, and there are additional heatsinks covering the M.2 slots for extra calling capability. On the back panel, there are 5 USB 3.2 Gen 2, of which one is a USB Type-C, and 5 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, along with the now standard 2.G Ethernet and Intel Wi-Fi 6. There is a Thunderbolt header elsewhere on the board too for additional options. Sound-wise, the Apex utilizes DTS Sound Unbound, which will give you great audio in games and is a welcome addition here. Supporting 128GB RAM across 2 DIMM slots means it is more limited than some of the other boards here, but as we have pointed out, it is unlikely you need that much, never mind 256GB. 3 M.2 slots are here for storage too, meaning you can't really go wrong with the options for a build that the Apex gives you.